Yep. So I mentioned the supply demand piece, but there's also this issue around technology and whether technologists understand the value of what they're doing. So another story that got my attention the past week is Diginomica talking about a study where they looked at CIOs and their ability to understand value, and finding, frankly, that they don't seem to be that great at it. Honestly, that's how our careers have been. We've looked at, uh, seen everything from Cisco certifications to Amazon, et cetera. And certs have often been the definition of value rather than aligning our work specifically to business outcomes and goals. And it seems like we are starting to see a shift in how that value should be defined and what CIOs are being asked to do.
Well, I hope so. I feel like this is the battle of my life, that my entire career has been rooted in this sort of thing. In my first book, I talked about when I did all this research, and that was the crux of it, that
Mhm.
IT, unique to almost every other part of the enterprise, didn't really get created with intent. It just sort of evolved because people started buying this equipment. They needed someone to maintain it, and it just sort of happened. And it was
Mhm.
always rooted in this idea of automating to drive efficiency. That's always been the core of it. And so I think there's so much ingrained sort of cultural anchoring to that it's really, really hard. We joke, I don't know if it's a joke. We've talked for decades now about the need for IT and business alignment, right? And everyone always says, well,
Yes.
why is IT the only one that has to do business alignment? Well, it's mostly because the mentality that IT organizations have had in their relationship with the rest of the organization. And so it's a significant, significant challenge. And so this article basically talks about how CIOs need to switch their focus to productivity and away from efficiency. And what I love about it is that it's a subtle but all important distinction, right? That efficiency is just making things work smoother and faster, and that's great. And it is the foundation of productivity. It's very difficult to drive productivity gains without efficiency gains. But productivity is now adding that next layer of
Mhm.
business value. What are the outcomes you're trying to achieve? I'll add one more word to this, and that is effectiveness, right? Because the definition to me of productivity is efficiency plus effectiveness, right? When you put them together, when we're able to look at what are we trying to achieve, and does our technology enable that and not get in the way of it, then suddenly we can start measuring that and start looking at it. And I think it's brilliant. And I'm also not sure I have that much faith that this is going to be the time that it finally changes.
Yes, but I know I've run into this problem a lot when I talk to some of my peers in the telecom expense or cloud FinOps world. People who theoretically have a lot of alignment with the business because they deal with the financial aspects of IT. And I will ask them, how does your job directly relate to the strategic objectives of your company? And this should be a layup question, frankly, because you're already dealing with the money, and they struggle to both answer what the company's strategic objectives are and what their actual role is in it. So the problem isn't necessarily that IT doesn't affect the business, but the people in IT don't know how to articulate how they are part of the business, and they are far enough removed from the strategy, or choose to be far enough removed from the strategy, that they don't know how these things come together. And it's not that that alignment doesn't exist, but I do think that IT, especially if you're at a managerial level or above, you need to be able to articulate very well what you do that strategically aligns to the business and is actually aligned to the goods and services of your company. That should be an easy thing to articulate.
The challenge is that it does. So one of the things I think with IT in particular is that it has historically been viewed as a horizontal career, right? You can go take your IT skills and work in any industry, but that completely disconnects with what you're talking about, right? If I'm trying to understand how we create value for the organization through the technology stack or through the technology architecture, well, then you have to have some domain expertise in that specific industry.
Yes.
And so that's where that disconnect. The best CIO I ever worked under was a non-technical CIO. He came from in healthcare, right? Healthcare operations. He was an operations guy. He knew healthcare inside and out. Didn't know squat about technology, and he was brilliant because he was not hampered by all of the underpinnings. He didn't care. He just said, "This is what we need to deliver to create value. Now, how are you going to go figure it out?" I think the hard part is today, that was 25 years ago. Today, it's harder to be in that position because you have to understand the technology now. And so I think, the good news is I think we're seeing CIO salaries rise because a truly transformative CIO is someone that can sit in that space between those two, understand how the organization creates value, and then can wield the technology stack and the architecture to deliver it. But that is one heck of a skill set today. It is incredibly difficult to do. And so I think that it's the right message. And I think as a starting point, focusing on productivity, focusing on employee effectiveness rather
Mhm.
than just the efficiency of process, um, I think is a heck of a first step to really be moving down that road.